Xin chào quý vị quan khách và chào mừng quý vị quay lại trong phiên thảo luận của hội nghị ngày hôm nay của chúng ta. Để bắt đầu chương trình thì chúng tôi xin phép được thông qua nội dung của chương trình buổi chiều ngày hôm nay. Vào buổi chiều ngày hôm nay, chúng ta đã bắt đầu trễ khoảng 10 phút. Bây giờ là 2 giờ 10 phút và chúng ta sẽ chuẩn bị bắt đầu vào phiên giới thiệu những cái việc mà chúng ta đã thu nhặt được, cũng như là những cái bài học mà chúng ta đã có được từ trong cái buổi thảo luận 2 ngày vào ngày 4 buổi thảo luận diễn ra song song đồng thời vào ngày hôm qua, ngày 22 tháng 3. Và trong cái nội dung mà chúng tôi mong muốn giới thiệu với các anh chị thì sau đó là chúng ta sẽ có đến cái phần nội dung của bà Joanna Rucker. Bà Joanna Rucker sẽ giới thiệu cho chúng ta về thỏa thuận xanh của châu Âu và những cái điều mà sẽ mang lại cho các đối tác ở ASEAN. Và cũng xin giới thiệu là bà Joanna Rucker là Phó Tổng Giám đốc của Ủy ban châu Âu phụ trách về môi trường. Và từ 15 giờ thì chúng ta sẽ có hợp tác và chuyển giao công nghệ và lợi ích chung của Liên minh châu Âu Đông Nam Á do ông Michael Brown, điều phối viên dự án eReady Green Tech sẽ là người trình bày nội dung này. Sau phần nội dung này chúng ta sẽ đi đến phần hỏi đáp cũng như là phiên thảo luận chuyển giao công nghệ xanh với châu Âu và các nước Đông Nam Á. Thì sau khi mà chúng ta thảo luận xong thì chúng ta sẽ đi đến phần cuối cùng là chúng ta sẽ tóm tắt lại tất cả những cái nội dung liên quan. Do vậy cho nên tôi mong quý vị là chúng ta sẽ tập trung và chúng ta cùng ghi nhận lại tất cả những thông tin, và những thông tin của buổi chiều ngày hôm nay kết hợp với những thông tin buổi sáng chúng ta đã cùng thảo luận với nhau sẽ là những thông tin bổ ích để chúng ta sẽ đưa Bình Dương nói riêng cũng như là Việt Nam và các nước ASEAN cùng kết hợp với châu Âu để trở thành một đối tác quan trọng trong cái diễn đàn thỏa thuận xanh của châu Âu này. Và để bắt đầu chương trình thì tôi xin kính mời bà Trang. Bà Trang sẽ có cái phần trình bày đầu tiên về phiên thảo luận đầu tiên ngày hôm qua của chúng ta, là phiên về những cái công nghệ đổi mới sáng tạo cho phát triển bền vững, trong phiên đầu tiên mà chúng ta đã thảo luận ngày 22 tháng 3 là ngày hôm qua. Xin kính mời bà.
Yes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Ms. Linh. So it's my honor to be here today to send a greeting to all of you on behalf of the Green Tech Project, a part of the eReady dialogue. So thank you again to Binzan Province, BKMS, and the European Commission and the eReady dialogue for their support to organize a meaningful event for the green cooperation between the Europe and Southeast Asia in general and Vietnam in particular. So as you all know, the agenda of the EU Industry Day 2021 started yesterday with 4 workshop sessions on topics of applied research and green technology development in sustainable manufacturing, as well as collaboration in this area among European countries and Southeast Asia. And today I'm pleased to act on behalf of the speakers and the chairperson of the workshop 1, the innovative technologies for sustainable manufacturing, to summarize with all of you some of the main content of the workshop on yesterday as follows. Next slide, please. So the workshop 1 was chaired by Mr. Phạm Ngọc Hiếu from Ministry of Science and Technology, give us the introduction of the 3 examples of success and excellent achievements in the application of innovative technology in sustainable production. The first speech comes from the BKMS Smart Manufacturing and Innovation Center by Mr. Phạm Tuấn Anh, with the topic is the smart manufacturing in Vietnam. And the second speech from the Hanel PT Company was given by Ms. Trần Thị Thu Trang, the chair of the company, and the Oceankov. Also, she is a chair of the business community, KHQ Vietnam. And the last speech comes from a representative from the EU, Professor Volker Orsted, Managing Director of the Beirut New Materials Technology Center, with the topic was about the practice example, the new material Beirut technology transfer to supporting industry for the innovation and competitiveness. So go through the main highlights of the speeches are as follows. Next slide, please. The first speaker from the SMIC, the Becamix, gave us a very interesting speech about the smart manufacturing in Vietnam. With its inception, SMIC aims to become the Vietnam's leading public-private partnership research center for intelligence and industrial production of 4.0. So they also promises to attract the talents such as the researchers, the research engineers, and the practice engineers to narrow the gap between the research and the industry to support the FDI and the local companies in their manufacturing investment. SMIC also focused on the 4.0 technology research and in which prioritize the smart manufacturing and the smart remanufacturing. They also, the center is not a production unit, but they work with the businesses and the university to collaborate on the research and practical application as a bridge role. The second speech is introduction of one practice example about building a sustainable manufacturing business in Vietnam was presented by the Haniel PT company. So with the 21 years of experience in the field of manufacturing electronic components and the high-end electronic equipment, through the conversation, the company also showed us how to develop a business sustainably for the past 21 years. Hana PT success is based on its sustainable business philosophy and the future orientation. The philosophy based on 5 concepts, focus on the benefits of customer, employee, the environment, the country, and the last one is benefit for company. So with these 5 concepts, Hana PT has succeeded in the building the domestic market and gradually enter the world market with high-end product, create the most rich brand name of Sasaki. And they also has the research plan to improve level and the development of the high-tech products in the future. So the last speaker yesterday is from the EU, who gave us a successful model of the cooperation between company, school, and the business sector. Yeah, so sorry. So NMB focus on the new materials and the new processes for the additive manufacturing, and they provide the research and develop service and bring the research result to production stage through the practical relevance and reaching the functions. They also link with the university and the new material Beirut company for technology transfer, share of the infrastructure, and the exchange of the ideas and networking. Next slide, please. So through nearly 2 hours of presentation and the discussion, we can draw the following main contents. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So, in terms of the collaboration model between the school, the research institute, and the enterprises.
So thank you, Anna, for your very interesting recap for our key learning yesterday. So we believe that the innovative technology for sustainable manufacturing with the partners at Becamex, Hanel, and also newer materialism, that's very critical for us. And we believe that in the future, we welcome all of those to work together with all partners in the workshop, together with the partner outside in the relationship between European and ASEAN. I would like to move on the second workshop. So yesterday, I'm also honored to be the chair of the Sustainable Global Supply Chains. And I also, this is a good chance in order to share to all of you about what we have to take away at the key learning yesterday. So for the key learning yesterday, that could be the presentation of three speakers. So in the presentation, we already have with Mr. Fred Wilbers from Leonardo, Dr. Đào Hà Trung from T-Food International GmbH, and Ms. Lê Nguyễn Duy Anh, the Supporting Industry Center of Ho Chi Minh City. With those speakers, we have taken away different kind of key learnings, and we believe that in order to enhance our global supply chain in the future, it's really necessary to get the involvement with the SME. And the SME need to get more support in order to enhance the capability of them. And when you look beyond Vietnam and focus in ASEAN setting, in order to support them to be really global and really international, it takes some gaps. And in order to fill in the gap, the government needs to focus on attracting investment from abroad. So with the linkages between the SME from international, especially from Europe, from different countries like in Germany, this is the place where so many SM develop, and when they transfer the technologies as well as given the chance to the SME in Vietnam, it could become the ecosystem where we can learn each other, and this is also the chance to contribute in technological upgrading by this way. Next slide, please. For the first presentation with Fred Wilbert, he has been sharing the audience with the holistic view on how manufacturing may change in the post-pandemic era. He's highlighted that manufacturing in the futures will be more sustainable. We should changing the new mindset which penetrates the whole manufacturing process, and more flexible, resilient local sourcing, focusing in financial impact. And this is also the critical thing which we have facing, and also get more experiences from the SME of Vietnam. And one of the things people talk a lot now, that is more digitalization and how to do automation, more robust, cobots, AI, augmented reality. It's quite easy to talk about digitalization, but in order to make that in the reality, in the setting of ASEAN and Vietnam, it could become very complicated. So I think Fred, he has shared with the people, and I believe that the people in ASEAN should find a way in order to be in the best solution for digitalization, automated. And the next point is that the more stringent health protection. So that is something that Fred we will share with each others. And I also feel very interesting with the 7 points which Fred had mentioned yesterday. So it's very interesting, and from the key learning himself, and also sharing with you later on, that could be very critical. And the second point, key learning, we have from Dr. Đào Hà Trung. This is from T-Food. Although T-Food is a company located in Vietnam, Germany, and Hungary, but his application, his company application in different countries, it could be very remarkable. And I believe that the T-Food providing solution for the COVID-19 situation, as well as the blockchain technology in the food industry. And this is very remarkable company made by Vietnamese, and we also provide globally. For the T-Food, they provide Trust One. This is the mobile application to trace the complete traveler journey and a digital green certificate for the COVID-19 situation. And it's very interesting that this is the result are integrated in B2B mobile app. And the case study have applied with Vinamilk, with Auchan and Migros. And there's some company in New Zealand that could also apply his traceability solution. And I believe that his sharing will support more for the SME. And one of the critical things from the SME from Vietnam, they believe that if the blockchain system of the T-Food meet well with the situation of Vietnam, so Dr. Đào Hà Trung said yes, this is really tailor-made solution, especially for the SME. And he would like to give the chance for more SME coming to his company and find a solution together. Next slide, please. So for the next one, that is from the system of the government and also the supporting the BSO, the Business Support Organization in Ho Chi Minh City. The CSID from Ms. Lê Nguyễn Duy Oanh. This is the public business support organization aimed to support the development of local Vietnamese. And the workshops and also the key learning which Ms. Lê Nguyễn Duy Oanh sharing to the participants that how CSID support the SME to assess the supply chain of Samsung Electronics in Vietnam. And as you know, that Samsung Electronics has invested a lot in Vietnam. And this is also the good chance in order to make the Vietnamese provide in the supply chain of Samsung. And this is also something make the capability of the Vietnamese SME to meet well with the international standard. So this is something that Samsung have made an effort in order to bring the SME in Vietnam to the multinational with the local firms and providing specific training and technical support and close relationship with a stakeholder. And I have known that Samsung have one very critical program in order to train the mentor to work directly with the SME in order to support them to enhance the capability. And in addition to that, the CSID also provides the database for local supplier, how to connect with the FDI company for the collaboration and also networking. They also have the factory innovation program in order to collaborate in the future. Next slide, please. For the Q&A section, this is very interesting question for Dr. Đào Hà Trung yesterday. This is the discussion about digitalization infrastructure to adapt in order to apply blockchain in the company if the company is really SME or small company. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not really very big investment in order to apply AI, blockchain, and other high technology inside the company. We should think first at the core and the concept of the company first and answer the right questions that why you need that, why the SME need that, and is it necessary to apply the digitalization tool into the system or not. And one of the things is that Dr. Đào Hà Trung also mentioned that some services, even with basic IT capability in the company only, could adapt with the requirement in order to apply blockchain or AI. So in order to sum up that local supply chain, local supplier are also part of the process. So one of the critical points is not only the company from Vietnam, but also the company around the world need to think about how to meet and comply with the standard in order to be beneficially, globally, and also internationally. And of course, the local SME also need to get more support from different organizations, from the local government, from business support organization in order to be competitive with international supplier. So that is also the part of our key learning of the Sustainable Global Supply Chain workshop yesterday. So I would like to move on with the workshop number 3.
So thank you, Ms. Lin. Can you start the slides, please? Workshop number 3. You have them here, or Nathan Shield? Because the workshop number 3 was Alexander Götz from Fisher Asia and German Business Association chairman. Still waiting for the slides. Do you have them here, Lin, to step in quickly? Shield? Because it's interesting that we had a different approach from workshop number 1 and 2. We focused on the business side completely, like Dr. Dao Ha-Chung had before, but what we heard this morning already. So it's interesting, some topics are reoccurring, for example, energy management. On the other end, we can see what is the benefit for the companies and what is their motivation. So I would just ask somebody to share the slides. Ms. Lin doesn't have them here, so please, Gilles and Nathan, you step in.
Just a second, Christoph. We're facing a minor technical difficulty. The slides will be up shortly.
Okay. So because then our audience can follow us as well. But I might start talking about company B. Braun in the meantime, because even though you would not think of a pharmaceutical company, if you put it in the large category, that they really come up with the topic of energy management or plastic management or plastic avoidance, and even setting up their supply chain, how they reuse their plastic waste in the manufacturing, and so basically give it to their suppliers. But oh, there we go. So please go immediately to the next slide where we have the introduction. Okay, so Mo Vamos, CEO of B. Braun, was the first speaker, then Patrick Chemnitz, and then Ms. Yen Wu shared about her point of view from the legal aspects and why IPR is important. Next slide. So it was interesting that Mo Vamos, for example, he shared and said we have CO2 goals. So not only as a company globally, but also then breaks down on the individual manufacturing plant here. But also they say this is due to their intrinsic values, but you have legal necessities as well. And also do not underestimate, even you might be producing in a developing country, the laws can be quite strict. Like in Vietnam, they are getting everything ready to say, we are no developing country, we are a mid-income country very soon. So you have to be prepared. But the global company goals so far have been the core motivation also with the companies I speak about. Then what was very interesting is also the strategic planning that what he shared with us, because to improve the whole operational environment and the manufacturing in Vietnam, it means they have they do it on the one hand for cost saving reasons, and this you hear I think from every single German company I spoke about in my past 10 years here. On the other end, this cost saving enables them that they can improve their products without increasing their production costs. So this was really important to say they have a year-on-year flat manufacturing cost, not curved, but it's really flat. This means in the midterm, they do the investment, so up to 3 years, and all the planning where they say, okay, this leads to bigger improvements as well, and this follows their Kaizen steps. But then also you have the strategic investments where we, for example, speak about renewable energy, which is a longer term investment, but they also have to do. So it's really interesting from a business perspective and a management perspective that, when he explains that. And as I mentioned before we had the slides, he's using their plastic waste in the production, that the leftovers, they don't throw it away, but they supply one of their suppliers with this disposable material, and their vendors then produce again plastic forks or whatever they need in their own manufacturing. Our second speaker was presenting more about the leapfrogging. So first of all, we have to explain where you see the beautiful 3 frogs down there. You can jump over unnecessary production steps. And I think every one of you in the meantime knows a nice smartphone. But when I'm in Europe occasionally, I still see these old Nokia phones. I don't know if you heard of that in Vietnam. I really see it only with, let's say, the truck drivers who need something indestructible. But on the other end, this is exactly, you do not have to go through the stage of these old phones, which are not very practical. You can immediately jump to the phase where you all have smartphones and the perfect usage. But the next example is due to the banking system, how it was set up, and the people had, not everyone had a bank account, the online banking and mobile banking, let's say, jumped over this very cost-intensive banking system that we had in Austria, for example. So this is what you say leapfrogging. You save cost, you simply jump over an unnecessary step. And we are talking now, especially when it's more expensive, when it wastes a lot of resources, and it's damaging for the environment. And when we talk about high-tech companies, then you have to look at Trumpf, where they might not be so visible at all the trade fairs where you can go, but every supplier who buys a machinery for their own manufacturing from them knows Trumpf, and he knows their cutting-edge laser technology, and which is used more and more all over Vietnam, where you have them in the automotive industry, you have them in the meantime in the electronics, which is also very popular. We spoke of before. So he said, yes, we are there, and we are a manufacturer for the manufacturing industry. So they produce the big machines, and they are very successful in their years in Vietnam. And to my knowledge, they are also still a family-run business. And they say, we need these advanced technologies, this is R&D, that we basically, similar like we had our speaker before, Moa Vamos from B. Braun, that also Trumpf, they have their year-on-year flat manufacturing costs, and they help their customers, as Dr. Long said in the morning already, help other companies to achieve your green manufacturing goals, or to improve your products without polluting the environment, and reach efficiency and be competitive. This we also heard before. And as a last speaker, we had Ms. Wu, and she introduced also from the Vietnamese perspective about the, what is green tech, green technology, what is the strategic plan to implement green technologies or going green in Vietnam, but also what's very insightful for the ones who are not so long in Vietnam to see what are the next steps, what's coming up, and what has been done achieved in the last 6-7 years now. And what is needed, you need intellectual property rights that to incentivize innovation, investments, or even on the stage where we all want to go there, the commercialization of them. Because you can be very innovative, but in the end, somebody has to invest in it, and it has to become marketable. So next slide, please, which is my last. All this was also mirrored by the question and answer sessions that we had, because key learning is technological advancement, the costs can be reduced, the products are improved, environment is protected, and the competitiveness is increased, but your return on the investments remains stable and does not go through the roof. It's also very important what especially the first two speakers, Moss and Patrick, said, the awareness raising, the constant training, the education of the staff, and especially it is that it becomes the whole mindset of the company, of the enterprise. And the different time horizons, we also have to put it forward, because people who live longer in Vietnam, you know, the strategic goals, the long-term planning, which gives direction and all the things. But inside the companies, you need this 3-stage plans, the year-on-year, short-term, what you can do immediately, then the mid-term, and then the long-term plan. And all this, I think, also has to be in line with the policymakers. And as the last one, where we say R&D, innovations, continuous improvements, all this also needs the protection, the legal protection, for example, when you speak about intellectual property rights. This has to be the right environment to be set up. And especially when we talk about bigger investments and cost-intensive innovations. But I think all of them agreed, and that's why they are many years already in Vietnam and very successful, that Vietnam is the right one. And those companies, what we had before, they are really investing in Vietnam and building up more and more. So if you want to know more about the GBA Vietnam, you find the link there. Also, the company Trumpf, B. Brown, and the Southeast Asia IP Help Desk, which provides the free advice for intellectual property rights for US. Thank you very much from my side. Not too long.
So I would like also invite for the next workshop, the Europe New Access Series Day Experiences and Technology Partnering.
So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So we are on, yeah. A good morning to our distinguished participants from Europe, and a good afternoon also to all of our guests here in Vietnam today and in the Southeast Asian region. My name is Florian Berenek. I'm actually Austrian, so that's why I'm here today in my role of a member of the executive board of the Central and Eastern European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam. In my professional life, I'm a principal expert for responsible business development at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, and as such, often dealing with topics we had now. And I'm based in Hanoi since 10 years. And again, like yesterday, I have the honor that joining me here today in Hanoi is Mr. Bruno Romy, the Deputy Head of Mission and Economic Counselor of the Slovak Republic in Hanoi. So welcome, Bruno, also joining us at the summary session today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning to Europe. Good afternoon to Hanoi.
Thank you. I would like to wrap up yesterday's session, which we had the honor to welcome one of the most renewed experts in the field of research on technology transfer, Professor Dr. Anna-Maria Inselt. And she was telling us about, oops, can we get us on the full screen? Thank you. Okay, yeah. Ms. Inselt was telling us about the importance of research, economy, academy, indicators, how critical these works, these underlying works are for informing governments, how to establish the right policies, how to attract the right partners, how to establish enabling environments. And not surprisingly, and we will talk about this later on again, the critical importance of the educational system. In addition, we had then two practitioners, real hands-on practical examples from two companies from Hungary. And I also want to express my sincere thanks to the Hungarian Trade House for cooperating with CEC on that event and helping us to bring companies from their country to share their experiences during the last 2 days. Pallotta is a more than 30 years old company which is working on both sides, the industrial application, but also in the research and in the policy advice in whatever relates to waste management. So from traditional common waste down to or up to more problematic waste, hazardous waste, chemical waste, and also hospital waste. And they tried us also to show how fruitful more innovative approaches in waste treatment and waste processing and recycling can be in the ways of, for example, industrial symbiosis. So this means that you bring the one waste to the next one where the waste turns into a raw material. And this can also be for non-material streams, also for energy, for steam, for water, for other kinds of industrial materials. And they also highlighted how important it is to team up in clusters to get support from governments, from their own government, or even from bigger blocs like the EU, but also in the targeted country. The same more or less was shared by 3B Hungary, another company which is mainly manufacturing equipment, but also they shared a lot of what has to be in place and what are the requirements. So the key issues and the key points, we listed them here very briefly in some lines, but we had the opportunity yesterday to discuss mainly one thing, which is here the first point already. This is actually the big challenge of how to maneuver, how to get your feet on the ground in a foreign country where you speak, where you don't speak the language, where you're not familiar with the culture. So how important it is to find local partners or staff which speaks both languages. They all told us this is a real critical issue. So mobilizing maybe the former diaspora, mobilizing people who lived in both countries, speaking the languages, and we see here that we have, especially in Vietnam, a lot of opportunities and good examples where this already happened, based on history, in particular then also with Central and Eastern European countries, but also you find it with the eastern parts of Germany. Also, it is of critical importance, all of them highlighted it, that you understand the connection between the technology and the local uptake when it comes to the skills. So the skills, the understanding, the development of required vocational training centers and programs, which is normally out of the reach for the technology transferring companies, because they don't have the means, they don't have the knowledge, and they don't have the money to do that. So again, cooperation and partnerships are critical. So we see here a lot of potentials and good examples on the university level, but there's a lot of room to improve on the vocational education system. In particular, again, for CEC companies, which have a lot of experience in how to quickly develop industries after strong or significant changes of business environment, economic and socioeconomic environment over the past 30 or 40 years. And finally, there is a lot of suggestions coming that it requires bi- and multilateral support, as I mentioned before, that we need the cooperation and the support of either both governments, bilateral, multilateral, and also big blocs, in particular the European Union and its institutions, like we are doing now. So such support should be continued, should be enlarged, and maybe more diversified, more specified, to finally also enable smaller European companies, like our two example companies, to become part of it. And we have actually today the great opportunity to have, and yesterday also with Mr. Romy, an expert, an experienced expert in how to build up supply chains, how to build up industries in a small country like Slovakia, but also how Slovakian companies are moving outside the country, in Europe, but also outside Europe. And I would like to invite him now for a quick review.
Thank you, Florian, and thanks very much for this opportunity to summarize what we have discussed, and based on the notes and the experience that I have, or experience which is basically shared by CE countries, not only Slovakia, but our neighbors, with the transformation of our economy, and in particular, in regard of the green technologies transfer, I would like to deliver a single key message, which is that the transfer of green technologies is a unique process, mostly because you not only mitigate the old environmental burdens or the so-called negative heritage from the devastation of the environment, but with basically cleaning it and cleaning this persistent environmental burden, you are forced to innovate, you are increasing your efficiency, you of course are upgrading your employment, also when the knowledge based area, and of course you increase the sustainability of these processes of the technology transfer. The basic tools that you need to employ to achieve it are several, but predominantly any transfer of technology needs a welcoming environment. It is not only in regard of prepared infrastructure, not just physical, but also knowledge infrastructure. You need skilled partners that can communicate, that are able to communicate with you, that basically understand your needs. Of course, necessarily there's always an advantage if they understand your language as well. And of course, you need this environment to have skilled workers or skilled labor. That is why the education and skills, the training needs to be stressed. This is a crucial point in attracting and facilitating any kind of technology transfer, including green technologies. And if you have educated and skilled people, they would be most likely faster in adopting and employing the technology, which is a very important thing for any kind of investor. And of course, it decreases the cost of investment or of the transfer itself. And the third very important tool would be cooperative or cooperating government or public institutions that also understand your needs. They would contribute to the welcoming environment, and of course reach out to the institution or the investor transferring the technology and facilitating, and by that they also of course attract or they improve the attractiveness of the environment. And the benefits that are also based on the experience of Slovakia or other Central Eastern European countries would be mainly that you are acquiring top-notch, cutting-edge technology, which is of course very important for your further development and for the upgrade of the production. You are by that also training your workers, your labor in general. So that's a very important thing future-wise. That also helps you to increase the investment to R&D with the help of the investor, but also with employing your own funds or capacity. And these two usually go hand in hand. And of course, last but not least, you are increasing the environmental standards in your country. You are improving the environment, and then that leads, of course, to happier population. Okay, so that would be it from the summary of yesterday's section. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again very much for the opportunity yesterday, for all the contributions, and I'm sure that these three or four main advices are replicating, also resonating what came from the others. So it requires partnerships, it requires strong governments, it requires strong institutions like the EU, and the support of research, of science, of academia on one hand, and on the other hand, enterprises for successfully transfer knowledge need also skilled people on the ground. And there, these partnerships, in particular with Europe, can benefit Vietnam and the entire region, following our participants yesterday significantly. So we are looking forward from CECC, from our member states, from our companies, to have an interesting way to go together to make the EVFTA a tangible and a successful story for all participants. Thank you so far from Hanoi. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation and also sharing with us all of the critical points in order to enhance our green technologies for the smart and sustainable manufacturing. And one of the promising part of Honolulu today, I would like to invite Ms. Joanna Reck, Deputy Director General, European Commission Directorate General for the Environment. She will present to us the Europe Green Deal, what is in for ASEAN partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, Vietnam, and good morning, Europe. I appreciate very much this opportunity of welcoming you all to the session. And by the way, I can't wait to be back in Vietnam. I had the pleasure to visit the country about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was enthralled by the innovation approach of this country and the young population, which is very, very eager, to do more. So I think we have very fertile ground there. I really want to express also my gratitude to the eReady Green Tech Initiative for the kind invitation and also the very successful organization of the event. I have a series of slides. This is the first one, of course, and it just shows that it's not just what's in it for us because of the Green Deal. Actually, Europe and ASEAN partners have had many years of experience of working side by side as strategic partners. We are both also together committed to enhance environmental cooperation and also pursue joint actions to address the global environmental challenges and find multilateral solutions to the common problems. If we just mention the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Agreement, and also the internationally agreed biodiversity goals, these are just one of the highlights of our shared agenda. But of course, in order to reach these, we need transformational change, and we need to have another look at economic models of our societies. Our long-term goal should be shifting towards more resilient and a regenerative economy that actually, through the economy, addresses the reversal of climate change and also environmental degradation and minimizing pollution. So in the short term, we can, through these models, create new jobs and create growth with investments in green sectors where people are happy to work. But of course, as key enablers, there's always green technologies that take center stage for this transformation, which needs to be driven also by technology, by also new skills, and by the, I would say, omnipresence of a sustainable new product, services, and also manufacturing processes. I would say the fire below all this, giving it energy, is a strong political and economic commercial linkages between the EU and ASEAN countries, which provide us for huge potential for huge cooperation on green technologies and our respective business sectors and research institutes. Maybe we can go to slide number 2. So of course, I think you all know this lady. When she came on board as president of the European Commission, she made a very bold, not promise, but I would say a vision that she has crafted around the Green Deal and called it the growth strategy. And this is what it's all about. It's all about growth because it aims to promote a new carbon neutral, resource efficient and circular economic model that protects natural capital and citizens' health while also promoting economic growth and job creation. So we are also in the middle of a pandemic. I think a year on, we can still say that we are still in the middle of it. And therefore, we also need to have the recovery on our minds. And the Green Deal is also at the heart of the recovery efforts. But if we want a truly sustainable recovery, we need a new approach. We cannot just slip back into business as usual, into previous habits, previous behaviors, which at the end of the day, it is more than proven today how much it damages the world we depend on every day. Building back better has become the mantra of the European Union, I would say, all strategies, policies, and legislative initiatives which are henceforth being undertaken. I would say under Building Back Better, let's read Building Back Greener as well. We're seeing this as a unique opportunity to reset, to press the reset button on our economies and really steer it towards the path of sustainable development, and also on the path of the Paris Agreement and the biodiversity goal. In practice, what does it mean, however? In practice, we need investments in the key green sectors. In practice, we need to give account that we are more resilient next time round, that we have created jobs, that we have created growth. Now, of course, when we talk about green sectors, we also have to be specific and exactly say what are we talking about here. We're talking about the smart circular economy, we're talking about the renovation wave, clean transport, sustainable food, clean energy, tackling pollution, and protecting and restoring biodiversity and natural ecosystems. And I think the key thread joining up all of these sectors is that it's about designing or redesigning. And Build Back Better will not have a meaning unless we actually think about the design at preconception. Investing, therefore, in the economy of the next century, of the 21st, 22nd century, and not thinking in the past and investing in past models which have served us, but have also failed us and the longevity of humanity and the planet as well. If we go to the next slide, please. So here you'll see a very visual representation of what the Green Deal is about. It looks a bit busy, but it's what we need to tackle if we are serious about what we want to produce and if we're serious about the transformation. So if we want to put our vision into practice, it means that the European Green Deal will bring a Europe where there will be no net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, where economic growth is decoupled from resource use, and very importantly, no person and no place is left behind. We have very much learned that all these challenges are interlinked, and it is a complex picture. So we are in the process of developing solutions that appropriately address such challenges, bold, ambitious, and achievable solutions. So if you look at the Green Deal as such, there's a number of strategic documents that, since its adoption in 2019, have already been adopted. There are some which are on the way, and I'll just talk a few seconds about those. The ones that have been adopted includes the climate law, which enshrines the principle of climate neutrality, or objective rather than principle, of climate neutrality by 2050. An industrial strategy which encourages green transformations to empower industry and small businesses. The Circular Economy Action Plan, which changes the way we produce and consume. A biodiversity strategy to protect and restore biodiversity. A farm to fork strategy for sustainable food systems, and a chemical strategy for sustainability. We are underway, of course, as we speak now, to adopt the remaining initiatives. And one of the major ones is Zero Pollution Action Plan. And the aim of this is to better monitor, to report, to prevent, and to remedy pollution from air, water, soil, and consumer products. We're also looking at a revision of the climate relevant legislation as a result of the proposed new 2030 climate targets, which increases the EU's ambition to 55% emissions reduction. However, for today's webinar, and this is the next slide, please now, I would like to focus on the Circular Economy Action Plan. Many people ask, why are you talking about this plan? Why is it necessary? And, we can actually scoop it up in one sentence. And that is, if we look at the last decades, the global population has doubled. We have tripled the extraction of raw materials, and the world's gross domestic product has quadrupled. Now, these are trends over decades. They are set to continue. Nothing is going to stop them unless we do something about it. If we look at one figure, because there are many figures and percentages, that might become confusing, but I think one is worth recalling, and that is the one that is published by the International Resource Panel, which actually quotes to us the numbers of materials, the global use of materials, which have increased from the current figure of 85 billion tons per year to 186 billion tons by 2050. So what I said before regarding doubling, tripling, quadrupling, in the end, bottom line means we shall be using 186 billion tons of materials by 2050. So in other words, if we take a mid-country statistic, the annual resource per capita will grow by a whopping 70%. This means that extraction and processing of resources contributes to half of the total greenhouse gas emissions, as much as 90% of it impacts on biodiversity and water. So the use of materials, it's not as if it's a standalone, something we can sort of put to the side and say, okay, we can ignore that. We know it's there, put it to the side. No, it has an impact. It has an impact on biodiversity, on water, on what we breathe and how we live. It is indisputable, therefore, that the world needs much more sustainable consumption and production models based on circularity and based on resource efficiency. We need a new economic model that closes the loop, maintains resources in the economy for longer, and also maintains production and consumption within planetary boundaries, minimizing waste and pollution. And this is exactly why the new Circular Economy Action Plan is very much at the heart of the European Green Deal. I need to be very, very clear. This is not just. It's not as if it's not important. This is not just an environmental plan, though. It's not just environmental agenda. By using resources more efficiently and keeping precious resources inside the economic loop, we are actually delivering a triple win. So we're delivering on the environment, we're delivering on society, and we're delivering on business to benefit as well. And I'll explain quickly why. Society. Why does circular economy deliver on it? Why? Because it can provide decent long-term jobs, especially through growth in small and medium-sized enterprises. For business, what does it deliver? It's going to have new opportunities for business, new scope for new investments, and greater competitiveness through savings and also efficiency. I would also say that we are living in a world for little tolerance for waste in value chains. In fact, reducing costs, water and energy consumption, and the efficient use of resources are required by modern businesses themselves. And it is therefore innovative green technology which can help companies lead the transition to circular economy. In other words, we can design out waste, pollution in value chains. And I think this is really at the core of what we are discussing here. So the EU new Circular Economy Action Plan includes a mix of mandatory and voluntary measures along the phases of the economic cycle. Looking at the production phase, I would say the design phase, before that, production, consumption, and transforming waste into resources as well. So it presents us with measures to make sustainable products the norm, first and foremost. It wants to empower consumers and public buyers. How? By giving them the right information at the right time in order to enable them to make right choices. Also to create a focus on sectors that use most resources and where the potential for circularity is high. And I mention here electronics and ICT, batteries and vehicles, packaging, plastics, textiles, construction. It also seeks to ensure less waste in the first place. If we prevent waste, we have less to deal with at a later stage. But we also need to make circularity work for people in their regions, in their cities, in their daily lives. We also need to lead global efforts on circular economy. There are a long list of actions, admittedly, 35 key actions and a lot of supporting measures which are foreseen in the plan. They are in the process of being rolled out, but we are certain that this can help the European Union come out stronger of the coronavirus pandemic crisis and keep its leading position as well in sustainable growth on a global scale, while leaving no one behind. We are convinced that it is also for countries across the world. It's not only for the EU. And new sustainable models will open up business and employment opportunities while strengthening the ties with European economic actors. I like to call it, creating circular economy language in business deals across the globe. And it is in this way that we together make efforts to integrate this new paradigm into production and consumption public policies as well, which are supporting these business models in different sectors. We also need to think about integration of processes, products, and circular services in companies and in new businesses who are themselves the protagonists in this transition. And in this regard, we are really looking forward to working together with ASEAN partners to bring forward the objectives of the Green Deal at the global level. Next slide, please. But of course, it is very legitimate for you to ask, what is it? What's in it for us as your ASEAN partners? Well, I have a few ideas that I'd like to share with you. First of all, this Green Deal is a global opportunity. The Green Deal has a strong external dimension, and of course, it will be key for its implementation and success. It cannot be a maker or shaker unless it is also presents opportunities for our external partners. And therefore, global cooperation is very essential to reach the objectives of the 2030 Agenda, of the Paris Agreement, and the global biodiversity targets. But there are also significant opportunities for industry and businesses. So what will it do in reality, in concrete terms? First of all, it will provide new global investment opportunities in key environmental sectors, in circular economy, in biodiversity, in water, and in air quality. It will push for more sustainability across supply value chains, therefore providing new trade opportunities for global green industry and create incentives for eco-innovation. It will also push for more innovation in the financial and industrial sectors, and, for instance, green taxation, mobility, waste management, air quality management, and water management. Next slide, please. A bit of a better nosedive into, concretely what does it mean for the EU-ASEAN cooperation. Well, concretely, I can mention the following. First of all, there is already a policy dialogue going on, policy and at bilateral and regional level. It's already happening, exchanging information, exchanging knowledge, and also designing common plans to address environmental challenges through bilateral and bi-regional policy dialogues. We are very much encouraged by the expansion of cooperation on many environmental areas between the EU and ASEAN. And we launched a high-level dialogue on environment and climate change in 2019. We have already carried out 3 so-called circular economy missions in the region, bringing the businesses together in Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore. And as soon as circumstances will allow, we will be looking again at opportunities to carry out further missions to the regions. We are enhancing cooperation with our ASEAN partners who bilaterally building on our political and trade agreements which provide opportunities for cooperation. For instance, one example is the EU-Indonesia Working Group on Environmental and Climate Change. This has been the driving force for the EU-Indonesia Environmental Agenda since 2017. But we also have trade and sustainable development subcommittees with Singapore and Vietnam. It also opens the way for multilateral cooperation. So policy dialogue is important, exchange of information, bringing the heads together, thinking heads and making the plans. But also there are significant opportunities for the two blocs to lead and cooperate on multilateral initiatives on circular economy and plastics, for instance. And there are two examples. One of them has just been launched. The Global Alliance for Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency was launched only on the 22nd of February, and a global agreement on plastics. And I'll come to these initiatives in a moment. But before I do that, I just mentioned the third element, if you like, which of course is very, very important. And it is one of the reasons why we are here today, is the financial support. It's also, the EU has to put its money where its mouth is. As part of our EU-ASEAN dialogue, we are currently supporting an initiative on circular economy that will lead towards the establishment of an ASEAN platform on circular economy. We are also financing the Rethinking Plastics project on marine litter and plastics that includes Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines, and Thailand. And we have also a long-standing cooperation on sustainable consumption and production with Southeast Asia through our so-called Switch Asia program. But let me give you a bit more details about these actions. Next slide, please. So if we start with the high-level dialogue on environment and climate change, the EU-ASEAN one, of course. This is, as we said earlier, a very good occasion to keep the dialogue going, as it were, on environment and climate, to go into the details and to exchange details about and information about the policies, about the positioning on international negotiations, and also ideas for future activities under the main areas of cooperation. And these comprise climate change and environment, including waste management, plastics and marine litter, conservation of natural resources, biodiversity, water, and sustainable cities. And the senior officials from ASEAN and EU gathered virtually for the second meeting only last November. During this meeting, we exchanged further experiences on environmental and climate goals and promoting regional solutions for green transition. The European Green Deal, the outcomes of the 31st meeting of the ASEAN senior officials on environment and putting sustainability at the heart of the recovery framework, guided the discussion. And we concluded, in fact, the meeting identifying a list of very concrete actions to follow up until the next meeting in 2021, this year. Next slide, please. What about multilateral cooperation? So as part of its Circular Economy Action Plan, the Commission, together with UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, and UNIDO, we launched this Global Alliance, which I mentioned earlier, for circular economy and resource efficiency on the 22nd of February in the margins of the United Nations Environment Assembly. It is an alliance of governments, first of all, but it is also supported by the stakeholders. And the aim is to advocate for the transition at the political level and in multilateral fora, in particular the United Nations. GACHERE, which is the much loved acronym that has been given to this alliance, aims to provide a momentum, a global impetus for initiatives related to circular economy transition, resource efficiency, and sustainable consumption production. It will therefore build on the efforts already being deployed internationally and put the EU at the forefront of the green transition. Singapore is already considering joining this alliance, but of course, we welcome all ASEAN member states to join us in this endeavor. Regarding the global agreement on plastics, still very much in the limelight, the European Union and the member states continue to believe that the transboundary problem of plastics pollution requires a very coordinated global response. Recent studies show that with the current actions and activities, although there are some in place already, but they will only be able to reduce marine plastic pollution by 7%, and not now, but within 2040. So what we need is a global agreement on plastics. This would be right, it would be more effective, not only on resource efficiency and environmental protection, but also as a key contributor to climate change as well, to tackling climate change. So it would be an agreement that closes the gaps that the existing instruments do not address, especially in the upstream part of the plastic life cycle. And the resumed fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA 5, in February of next year, will be a decisive moment in this regard, because at that point we hope to see the adoption of a resolution starting the formal negotiation process. And we are very pleased that many countries share our view, also in the ASEAN region. We appreciate that Vietnam, Singapore, and the Philippines, together with more than 2/3 of the United Nations member states, have indicated support for this agreement. Next slide, please. And of course, what would we do without finance? But and on the financing side, the e-Ready instrument supports the circular economy initiative. The Commission and the ASEAN Secretariat are working very closely here to make this initiative a model of success in the region. The ASEAN senior officials on the environment endorsed this initiative in 2018. It reflects the priorities set in the ASEAN EU Plan of Action 2018-2022, which identifies circular economy as an area for enhanced cooperation. In 2019, we conducted a gap analysis here on circular economy and plastics in all 10 ASEAN member states. The EU and ASEAN discussed the outcomes of the study during a regional multi-stakeholder workshop in Kuala Lumpur in 2019. It was in fact a very inspiring workshop during which the participants initiated an idea to establish an ASEAN platform on circular economy. And this platform is expected, in fact, to facilitate the sharing of the good circular economy practices across ASEAN, to engage key stakeholders, and to help design policies that can accelerate a circular economy transition. It reflects the importance of circular economy practices for achieving sustainable consumption and production, and for meeting several sustainable development goals, as well as many of the objectives in the ASEAN blueprints. But it also reflects our own commitment to work with other regions, as expressed in the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. The EU is supporting the establishment of the platform and its initial meetings planned for 2021, while the ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development Studies and Dialogue kindly offered to host the platform. We sincerely hope that the platform will complement existing facilities in ASEAN and stimulate the adoption of circular economy approaches and solutions across the region. Next slide, please. Rethinking plastics. We have to look a little bit deeper into one of the most important challenges that we're facing not only in the region, but I would say globally. And here we have to highlight marine litter and plastics. Both the European Union and ASEAN indeed acknowledge the marine litter is a growing global problem, and it is therefore also increasingly more and more of a threat, and a very serious threat to the environment, the economy, and also our own health. If we continue to mismanage waste on land, and plastic is a major source of that, we are going to be not in a good place to really think ahead of how we could plug in to new circular economy models. So we need to really focus our efforts on the prevention side in the first place, and to tackle plastic pollution further upstream as well. And we can do this by adopting the circular economy approach to plastics at the global level. In order to address this, we have started in May 2019 with the implementation of the project on plastic waste and marine litter in East and Southeast Asia. This 10 million euro project is addressing 5 ASEAN countries: Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. And in practice, we are engaged already in 20 pilot projects in Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines. And they are covering a number of wide range of issues, such as extended producers' responsibility for plastics and plastic waste, sustainable consumption and production of plastic, single-use plastics, and reduction of litter from sea-based sources. Next slide, please. Finally, we come to the Switch Asia project, launched in 2007. And this has achieved much more than a decade of progress on sustainable consumption and production in 24 countries in the region. And this has been possible through the joint effort of the three Switch Asia components, which is regional policy, advocacy, sustainable consumption and production facility, and grants program 2. This is in fact the large sustainable consumption and production program produced by the European Union in Southeast Asia, South Asia, Central Asia, Mongolia, and China. Nearly 300 million euros have been invested towards promoting SCP in Asia and Central Asia, and around 130 projects were funded in the region over a period of 14 years. Through Switch Asia, we supported over 500 Asian and European not-for-profit partners, about 100 private sector associates, and 80,000 Asian micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And on this slide, in fact, we have panned out some of the examples of projects in Southeast Asia from last year. Last slide, please. It's just to thank you that we have been given, I have been given this opportunity to present to you what the Green Deal is all about, and also homing in on the partnership and what the Green Deal brings, especially in the area of circular economy, for this partnership. I cannot emphasize strongly enough that a transition to a more circular economy is a truly global and cross-sectoral effort, bringing together governments, businesses, and people. And it is only a concerted effort of both the EU and ASEAN can bring about positive changes in addressing these pressing global challenges. It has really been an honor for me to be able to present my perspective before you all today. And I wish you all a good continuation of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joanna, for your great presentation of the Green Deal, and it's also very beneficial from our side in ASEAN in order to learn more about what European will bring it in with us in order to bring in the partnership. So in order to continue the program, I would like to invite Dr. Michael Brown. He will share with us about the technology cooperation and transfer for mutual European ASEAN benefits. So I would like to invite you, Michael Brown.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Joanna, because you have been already explaining a part of what I wanted to say, and you have in particular motivated us to continue to work on green manufacturing. So let me just spend 5 minutes now on explaining how does green manufacturing fit into the larger framework, which we have just heard been described in such an incredible way by Joanna Drake. So the first thing is, why are we speaking about green manufacturing here? And you know, there's sort of a paradigm shift. Traditionally, when we spoke about green manufacturing, we were speaking about eliminating industrial pollution. Everybody remembers these pictures of smoking chimneys and all this, but there's much more to sustainable manufacturing than this. We are also speaking about products which are compatible with the environment. We are speaking about healthy and motivating workplaces. We are speaking about smart manufacturing and smart products. And I will come back in a moment to why am I speaking here about smart products, because, you know, at the end of the lifetime, in the old model, we were throwing products away. Smart products means also that we can not only recycle the materials, that we can reuse them, that we can really work towards the circular economy, which has been mentioned so many times here. So we really want to move from disposable products through smart manufacturing also to a circular economy. And last but not least, manufacturing means employment. So what we do in green manufacturing must be green, but at the same time, it must also be competitive. It must also be able to meet market needs. So let me have a brief look at the value chain of manufacturing. Typically, you see, you have these steps here. You start with raw materials. Raw materials which you deploy means you're consuming natural resources, you're consuming energy, and you're producing emissions and waste in gaining these raw materials. There's a lot of room for improvement here. Then you use these materials to make components, and then you assemble the components to manufacture products. And then these products are used, and at the end of the lifetime, you can remanufacture them, you can recycle them, or you can just throw them away. All this has a huge sustainable impact on this. So where are the opportunities for green technologies here? You see, in each of these steps, you can use technology to reduce consumption of natural resources, to replace non-sustainable materials, to reduce dangerous or repetitive human labor, for example, which is also part of green in our definition here. And of course, you can also improve the environmental footprint of the supply chains, in which Workshop 2 has been discussed a lot about this, by smart manufacturing. And at the end of the day, we also want to make our contribution from the manufacturing side to the circular economy by moving from a dispose model beyond a recycle model into a reuse and remanufacturing mode. And all this is heavily influenced by manufacturing. And I will just show you here some brief examples how that can do. You see, one of the issues we are working on in our project here is biodegradable plastic bags, which you can see here on the left side. And Vietnam has the privilege of having several companies. RKW was mentioned already. I would like to mention another one, Anfat, a Vietnamese company, which has worked its way to become one of the leaders in biodegradable plastics in Asia now. We speak about energy saving. Of course, we also speak about end of pipe. We speak about the modernization, but we also speak about a little bit about the future. Robots and mechatronics have a huge potential to make work safer and less dangerous for workers. Another thing is, when you manufacture a product, you must think about its repairability and disassembly, because all this means that we are reducing the use of resources and energy and of labor to produce permanently new products, which we throw away after 2 years. And the European Commission has some interesting things which we are looking about, some interesting policy approaches also here. So in the end, we want to move towards a cradle to cradle, as we call it, approach. A brief word on where do innovative technologies come from. Basically, in technology transfer, you have two parties involved. One of the parties are technology producers, those who create new knowledge and new technologies. These are researchers, this is R&D stuff in enterprises, and these are in some cases just also innovators, entrepreneurs. And then we have the technology users, and without the technology users, we cannot reap any benefit from new technologies, because we need the private sector in particular to pick up the new technologies and to run with them, to make new products from them, and to create new value. Only the private sector has the power and the knowledge to convert new knowledge and new technologies to a commercial scale where they can really have an impact in the way as Joanna has just been described. This means that, as you can see here, to have technology transfer, technology conferration, and seamless innovation chains work, you need two things which must fit together. On one hand, you need an innovation push. Somebody must develop new technologies, but you also need a demand pull. There must be somebody who needs the new technologies and who runs with them. And in our project, we are working on the way, how can we bring the technology producers and the technology users together through a couple of means, which I don't have the time to elaborate here. But let me come briefly, maybe then also to the current situation, where are the obstacles in this? We all agree that there's a need for the Green Deal and everything Joanna has been describing so wonderfully. And manufacturing can make a contribution to this Green Deal. And in particular, a cooperation between Vietnam and ASEAN on one hand, and Europe, on the other hand, can make a big contribution to this, because Vietnam and some of its ASEAN neighbors have become global manufacturing powerhouses. They are integrated in global value chains. If you think about the achievement of Vietnam, which has made all this from a post-war economy becoming really an integrated part of global value chains and a manufacturing powerhouse in only some decades, this is really a huge achievement. So you see, but there are new challenges. So Vietnam, like its ASEAN neighbors, needs a paradigm shift. The traditional manufacturing model was based on labor and resource consumption and on, well, basically on low value added and on low, and very often it had low environmental standards. And now the ASEAN countries I'm speaking about here, they are striving for a new growth model, which is based on technology, which strives to achieve higher value. But for this, they must modernize their manufacturing sector. And in this, they must link economic success and sustainability. So most ASEAN countries today have their own green growth strategies. But one of the things where Europe can help is they are wrestling with two challenges here. The first one is there's still a low availability of state-of-the-art green technologies, I try to describe them, in many ASEAN economies, and the local innovation systems can't develop them to the needed extent alone. So cooperation is beneficial for both sides of them. And as you see, so on one hand, Europe is a powerhouse of new technology and innovation and is trying to bring these for the best of economies and of the environment, as Joanna has been described, to the world and to share its knowledge with the world. While on the other hand, in the ASEAN countries, we have many technology-hungry enterprises. If you remember the speak of Mrs. Thuy this morning, she was speaking about how desperately many SMEs, for example, need new technology. So you see there is a huge benefit potential in this when working together. And this is what we are attempting in our project here. So we have a project under the E-Ready scheme, which is called Green Tech. And in this project, basically what we want to do is we want to raise awareness and create commitment to technology, cooperation and transfer between south and north, but also south-south, by creating awareness through conferences like the one which we have, by speaking with many stakeholders. Our team permanently is in exchange with, I would say, in the meanwhile, hundreds of stakeholders. And all this shall lead to a proof of feasibility, where in 3 pilot projects, we try to demonstrate the benefit and the feasibility of green technology cooperation and transfer between ASEAN and Europe. The first pilot being plastic waste, where we are working on the whole plastic value chain and where we're trying to find solutions for current problems related to plastic. I will not repeat what was said in the workshops already. And this pilot is coordinated on behalf of ASEAN by the Philippines, by the Department of Science and Technology. The second pilot project, the one brings us here together, is sustainable manufacturing. This pilot is hosted and driven on behalf of ASEAN by Vietnam, for which we are very grateful. We are very grateful to our hosts today, to BKMX and to the province of Bình Dương, as well as to the Minister of Science and Technology, with whom we are collaborating also, and who is supporting this and who is representing this in ASEAN. So the objective here is really to support the transition towards sustainable manufacturing through initiating transfer green technologies and through related capacity building. Briefly mention about the third project. This was added late in order to account for the current pandemic, where we try to help through our project to strengthen the capacities in ASEAN to manage the current pandemic through technology transfer and through helping to initiate research collaboration. And at the end of the project, which has a project duration of 1 year, we will try to disseminate the results, and we hope that they will be convincing enough that many ASEAN member states will pick up and will want to transfer and to apply this concept of EU-ASEAN technology transfer to other areas also. So if you're interested, if you have a new technology to promote, which you would like to share with partners on the other side, if you are a Vietnamese or an ASEAN company who wants to work, if you're a policy maker who wants to get involved in our initiative, you will find in my PowerPoints our contact data. As I said, this is a project which is under the Enhanced Regional EU-ASEAN Dialogue Instrument, eReady, which is funded by the European Commission and implemented in cooperation with ASEAN. So if you want to work with us, if you want to work more, please feel free to contact us anytime. My colleagues, our project owners, will be happy to reply to you and to work with you. Thank you very much. That was all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Rao, for very interesting sharing about our future cooperation and also the mutual benefit. So I would like to continue with the next Q&A section, and I would like to check on the chat box and also the participant in this ballroom whether we also have some questions. So up to now, we have not yet any questions. So I think if we do not have any questions, and I wonder if we have any questions from the whole room. Okay, so if not, I think that we should move on to the roundtable section. So I believe that in order to understand the green technologies and also circular economy is very critical. This is really the hot topics nowadays. So many partners around the world, not only in Europe, but also in ASEAN, we concern a lot about that. As Ms. Xuân Thúy mentioned early in the morning that as the SME in Vietnam, just 1/4 of the SME concerned about the green technologies. So we do not want to limit ourselves up to that number. So we would like to enhance more. And of course, on behalf with the ASEAN countries, Vietnam and also particularly Bình Dương would like to collaborate with the project. Hopefully that in the future we will have more green technologies company embedded in the assembly line and also together with the service industry. So I would like to continue with the roundtable with the topic navigating the sustainable manufacturing journey. I think this not only one step, one workshop like this or the symposium. We need to go on and keep moving forward as developing the sustainable manufacturing in the journey. And I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Michelle Chiu, the ASEAN Secretariat Assistant Director, Science Technology Division. She will come up on the screen together with the participant, Mr. Miguel Esposito Verdejo, European Commission Deputy Head of INTIPA, Science, Technology, Innovation and Digitalization. Mr. Frederic Contras, Managing Director of BASF Vietnam. Mr. Nicolas Audier, the Chairman Eurocharm Vietnam. And Mr. Chris Humphrey, Executive Director, EU-ASEAN Business Council. So I would like to invite all of you to come up on the screen in order to start the roundtable. And we also welcome all of the participants to send us the questions on the chat box of the Zoom. So we also give the questions to our speakers as well as the speaker in the previous section. We'll answer to your questions later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Lin. So without further ado, let me continue with this roundtable. So as everyone knows, this is a navigation through the sustainability journey of either from the government and as well as the business sector. So for the first speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Miguel, who is the Deputy Head of the newly created Science, Technology, Innovation and Digitalization Unit. And Mr. Miguel has over 25 years of professional experience in the field of international cooperation. And in fact, he is an agronomist by training and has worked in many countries like Argentina, Germany, Ecuador, Tunisia, India, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Haiti, and Belgium. And since 2011, he has been working at the European Commission's Directorate General for International Partnership. And before he took on this role at the Science, Technology, Innovation and Digitalization Unit, he was the head of Knowledge and Data Unit, where he was responsible for the Online Academy on International Partnerships. So without further ado, please let me invite Mr. Miguel.
So thanks a lot. I don't know if you can hear me. I have some connection problems.
Okay, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, very good. So thanks a lot, Michelle, for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, dear partners, it's really a great pleasure for me to participate in this important event, which offers us the possibility to share knowledge and experience on sustainable technologies. Well, we are living in a global world, and the EU and ASEAN are more connected than ever before through growing trade between our two regions, the cooperation between our academic communities, and tourism, at least until COVID struck the world. So talking about COVID, we face also common challenges as emerging together from the COVID-19 pandemic and to seeking to build back better in a more resilient and sustainable and greener way. As I'm sure that participants in this event know, since shortly, actually December of last year, our two regions have become strategic partners, further anchoring sustainable development at the heart of our cooperation. Over the last 7 years, the EU has invested 280 billion euros for cooperation with the ASEAN region. This is directly regional funds, and another 2 billion which went into bilateral cooperation with the member states of ASEAN. The main aim of this cooperation is ultimately to enhance prosperity through innovation, new technologies, improved connectivity. At the same time, this cooperation respects some fundamental principles of our cooperation, like building environmental, sustainable, and inclusive societies. So, how does this cooperation look like in practice? What are the programs we're talking about? So, I've just taken 2 examples. One is probably well-known. It's a flagship program which is called ARISE Plus. It's a regional integration support program which supports connectivity through sustainable economic integration and trade. It has many aspects of technical cooperation, of enhancing cooperation on several levels between the ASEAN member states. It actually also is compliant and tries to support the ASEAN Blueprint for 2025 and the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025. Another one, which is kicking off right now, actually, is the ASEAN Singapore Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. As we all know, new technologies nowadays are absolutely connected with the digital world, and digital world means also cybersecurity. So this is a new program which aims at building capacity, expertise in the field of cybersecurity, train-to-trainer programs, etc., and this on a regional level. So these are only 2 examples of the type of cooperation that we are looking into it. Important to mention here that our cooperation and partnership always aims on a joint responsibility to protect the environment, supporting a global green recovery and joint commitments toward the 2030 agenda and sustainable development goals, and of course the Paris Agreement on climate change. Talking about manufacturing industry, and especially the high-tech sector, this industry and sectors must support and be supported to play a stronger role in embracing climate change action. And the European Green Deal offers a collaborative policy and solution-driven for sustainable innovation and green technologies. But of course, the Green Deal will not be achieved by us Europeans alone. So we have to work hand in hand together and accelerate actually the transitions towards less emissions in the manufacturing sector while requiring strong strategic collaborations and global partnerships. Without growing synergies between the EU and ASEAN, priorities including sustainable manufacturing, the momentum towards scaled innovation ecosystem is very strong. Finally, green energy technologies, new approaches to climate investment and innovation will be crucial in this new agenda. And I'm really looking forward to the contributions of the other members of the panel, and also to some enlightenment on the different ways the participants are dealing with this aspect of sustainable manufacturing and innovation. So I hope I kept my 3 minutes in time, and this is from my side. So thanks a lot, Michelle, again, and I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miguel. And sorry, everyone, that we are in a bit of a rush here because there will be some speakers who might have to leave. So rather than going through the normal protocol that we have, we will actually jump now to Chris. If Chris doesn't mind, Chris will actually be sharing on building on what Mr. Miguel said about the energy sector. So Chris will be sharing something along the energy sector, maybe perhaps the food sector, as well as the automotive sector. So Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. I hope you can hear me okay. Thank you for the organisers for this event today. First thing I would say, I would pick up on something actually that Joanna Drake mentioned, which is the solutions for sustainability for manufacturing and across the whole of society is not just for the private sector. It requires government and private sector close collaboration and cooperation. I think if you're looking at the manufacturing sector in particular, there are two things that we need perhaps to look at mainly in terms of reducing our carbon footprint and greening ourselves for the future and saving our planet. The first of those would be energy efficiency. And I think Guru from Bosch earlier today, when he was talking, was mentioning this. There's a lot that can be done fairly simply and easily and at a relatively low cost way with a quick return on investment as well in energy efficiency. So moving to have better, more modern electrical motors in plants, driving efficiency in operations, smart light systems, etc., can all pay off quite quick and reduce energy consumption for businesses, lower their costs, and of course at the same time reduce their drawdown on power systems at the same time. But that's all well and good. That only takes you so far. If ASEAN as a region really wants to make progress on greening itself and tackling climate change, it needs to embrace energy transition wholeheartedly. And it was good to see that one of Brunei's priority economic deliverables for this year is on energy transition and trying to drive it forward. And why is that important? Well, quite simply put, if we don't start tackling how we're generating electricity in the region, removing fossil fuels as the primary fuel for our power stations, it's going to be too late. We're not going to reach carbon net zero by 2050. We're going to have to achieve minus 1 or 2% on carbon emissions by 2050 if we are to save ourselves in the region. But the big problem, I think, for ASEAN on this is how do you fund energy transition when you have growing economies and growing needs for power? Having coal-fired power stations is actually the cheaper, simple and easier solution. It's not so much moving towards renewable energies, which need to be scaled up. And for some of them, they would think they're more expensive. We at the council actually have been working on what we call an energy transition mechanism. It's a way of early retiring of coal and oil power stations and using the money for better uses for renewables going forward. And it's something actually we will present to ASEAN finance ministers next week. What is clear, I think, and from many of the discussions here today, we need an ASEAN-wide solution to this. It can't be done on a country-by-country basis. The gentleman earlier today was talking about Singapore. Singapore's power generation comes exclusively from LNG almost, and the amount from solar is very, very small. And the chances for them to ramp up renewables is small, so they need to get power from elsewhere in the region in terms of renewables. So we need an ASEAN-wide solution to all of this. If I was looking at, in particular, some industries, if I was to look at, say, the automotive industry, I think there's huge scope there in the region for them to modernize and adopt greener technologies. But again, it needs governments to mandate things like improvements on fuel efficiency standards and emission standards in the sector. It's nice to have more cars as the region gets more prosperous, more people want cars. And at the moment, the cars produced in the region aren't particularly clean. And if they want to have a global industry that can export back to Europe or to the US or to Japan in the future, they need to produce cleaner cars, greener cars, less cars with the internal combustion engine inside them as the primary drivetrain for them. So I think moving ahead there and having cars that are more fuel efficient and have better emissions not only benefits the population of the region, it will benefit the ASEAN automotive industry because they'll become more competitive and be able to produce more cars to sell elsewhere in the world going forward. And I think finally, Michelle, you asked me to talk about agri-food. I think the other area where technology, green technologies can play a great role in helping the region as well is on production at the farms, agricultural production. There's a lot of work being done there using drones, using technology, using smarter application of fertilizers and pesticides, which can improve the nutrition of the crops grown and the harvest volumes as well, which will in turn help alleviate rural poverty in the region. And I think one final comment from me, when we talk sustainability, we as Europeans tend to focus on the green part. I think here in Southeast Asia, the other UN SDGs are just as important, including feeding ourselves, educating our kids, getting a decent job and access to good healthcare. And we shouldn't lose sight of that. But there's a lot of work that we can do, a lot of work the private sector needs to do to help the region. The Commission, as you just heard from Miguel and earlier from Joanna, is doing an awful lot in this space, including putting down hard cash. And I think we can all work better and smarter together to help ASEAN.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. And all that about sustainable planning as well. So let's move on to Prof. Alexander. So I've known Prof. Alex for many years, and I'm really glad that he is on here with us today. So Prof. Alex will actually share about Nunrise Private Limited, a Singapore firm. So I will not take away what he will share, but over to you, Prof.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on this roundtable. And I'm not from an agency, and so we are a private sector company, and we want to actually do what you all say we should do. And so I would like to share a little bit of what the idea is behind it. So there have been actually already in the 90s many initiatives in Europe and later also in Singapore for more sustainable city planning and construction, because at the end of the day is the cities are where the people are living, and most of the processes and the goals you have described are actually happening in the big agglomerations. So it is a good thing to actually plan the cities already from the very beginning in a more sustainable way. So in many of these projects, the private sector has been directly involved in all the developments, but there was no knowledge hub for tapping into this integrated and comprehensive experience and learnings in the last 20 years. So a few extremely successful and real world showcases have been set up in the past, among them the Eco-Campus of the Nanyang Technological University, NTU at Singapore. The Eco-Campus has drawn much on the 2000 watt experience in Europe, particularly in Germany, France, Austria, and Switzerland. So there's been some basic work being done before in Europe, and that has been brought over to Singapore. Now, Nunrise was then set up to extend actually the success and the knowledge and the networks and unique experience of the Eco-Campus initiatives of NTU as a knowledge hub for the technological innovation and sustainable business in Asia. So basically, what does Nunrise do? Nunrise has a number of services it provides, being it the private sector, being it a governmental agency, or being any other organization who would like to get more knowledge and get all the networks involved. So what we do is we provide the service in sustainability strategies and technologies, and their application in cities. So I think we know what's around on the market, what can be done, and how it can be implemented. We do training and capacity building, particularly on the executive level, like city mayors. We started with a big program last year, but then COVID-19 actually stopped it for a time. But the moment people can travel again, that will happen. We do also technology commercialization, test bed programs in universities, university campuses, but also science parks and urban development projects. So we have been involved in many of these projects in China and in Thailand. We also enable investment and partnerships in setting up of green technology enterprises. So it's also all the startup scene, all these new companies coming up. We are actually helping them to find investors and also partners and get involved in their production. We do planning and design of technology which drives sustainable urban development. And we have city planners at NANRISE who are have been for many years in this area. But we also do technology research collaboration, and this is basically what I have seen in my experience in the last 30 years is very often there is a lot of know-how around, but to apply it and to use it and to actually build it, it's a huge problem, and very often we have more than 10 to 15 years to really implement things into the real world. So the NANRISE, basically we have the company is new, but the people involved have over 30 years of experience and have learned what it needs to implement game-changing sustainable solutions, and how important it is actually to be fully inclusive and to make sure all stakeholders are on board. This is all very often very much underestimated. And what we have also learned the hard way is that this is a time-consuming enterprise, and that every shortcut which you will take will actually double and triple the time to fix the time you thought you can save with the shortcut. So the inclusiveness that you do step by step, and specifically in Asian countries, this is very important that you actually follow the path you designed, and you do step by step and learn from each step how you do it. And try not to make shortcuts, because it will always backfire at the end of the day. I hope with that I gave you a little bit of a background of what NANRISE is. NANRISE is basically, if you want, a knowledge company who brings people together and enables to actually implement from the planning to the manufacturing.
Thank you very much, Prof. Alexandra. So I think that was a very good lesson for us, or for all of us to learn, actually, for all the ASEAN member states, especially those working in science, technology, and innovation policy, where we hope to achieve the results and leapfrog, but like what you said, it might take many years to actually reverse if it's the wrong decision being taken. So actually with that, and since you mentioned about capability development, let us turn to Ryan. So I believe Ryan has been working a lot on working with either startups and even researchers on how to transfer the technology and also building up the capability in the area of sustainability. So without further ado, may I invite Ryan to share your experiences, please?
Hi, thank you, Michelle, for the introduction and warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to participate in this roundtable and share our experience in sustainability and innovation ecosystem. So I'm currently leading the efforts in smart cities and future mobility at Ecolabs, Center of Innovation for Energy at the Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. So it's really, I'm very happy to participate in this panel and interact with Michelle, Miguel, Chris, Frederick, and also Sasha again. So before I get into my thoughts about the topic in sustainable manufacturing journey, do allow me to give some context of what Ecolab Ecolabs does and my work. So Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy is actually jointly established by Nanyang Technological University, the Singapore government through Enterprise Singapore, and the Sustainable Energy Association of Singapore. So we aim to build and accelerate deep tech energy innovation capabilities in Singapore and supporting the nation's future energy transition. So we serve as a one-stop hub to help the small and medium enterprises and startups to innovate, to grow, and also to commercialize in this very competitive energy sector by providing them with translational research, living test bed innovation programs through our corporate partners, funding partners through our VCs, investors pool, and also creating a community platform for interaction. So that said, our team support roughly from two angles: a technology translator angle and a startup accelerator perspective. So with a strong experimental spirit and also being a key player in the innovation ecosystem in Singapore, so we adopt a user-centric and iterative approach in technology development and test bidding while we support the startup. Despite being hosted in NTU in the university, we are not restricted to only work with NTU affiliated startup. We position ourselves as a national center of innovation, so we work with startups across the board to test bid their solutions in the real world environment in Singapore and globally. So ideally in the commercial pilot stage, if they are too early, then it may not be the most suitable startup that we work with. So in this process, we often together with the startup to co-create, develop, and support their innovation journey and bring smart city solutions to the various test bed site and partners that we have. So one such program that we have is actually with Continental Automotive, which is the Ecolabs Continental Urban Mobility Accelerator. So we work with selected startup and small and medium enterprise to develop and test bed their mobility solution in our test bed site. So in Singapore, we actually have test bed sites in University Campus, Innovation District, offshore, off-grid islands, commercial buildings, and car park. Some of our global test bed partners in the region include an international airport in South Asia, university campus and industrial facilities in Southeast Asia, and Innovation District in East Asia, and many more. So this project covers areas like buildings, energies, future mobilities, and even manufacturing facilities and so on. And many of these startup solutions could support the sustainable manufacturing sector as well. What's hidden and often understood in our sustainability impact in the solution of our startup in terms of the energy, resource recovery, and productivity gain impact they can make. So coming back to the topic of this roundtable on promoting sustainability in manufacturing. So I like to give a company case study, which is this company called Transferfy. So they are a Singapore-based startup doing industrial IoT solution. You may ask, IoT solution is so common. So what's so unique about this company and this solution? Their IoT devices are actually powered wirelessly, and that's something quite amazing, because can you imagine to install IoT solution across the manufacturing facilities? What kind of downtime are we talking about? The power link and so on. So there are issues with this upgrade to digitalize the manufacturing facilities. But with wirelessly powered devices, network of devices, it actually improved the productivity and the downtime a lot. So they recently completed a commercial deployment at the Advanced Manufacturing and Technology Centers, ARTs in Singapore, and it was deployed to showcase a truly wireless IoT solution platform to enable digitalization in a factory line to monitor the different conditions, the production yield, and so on, without putting major renovation work on cabling, batteries, and so on. So all this was done within 1 hour of setup with the sensors placed in the different locations, 5 locations in fact. And the distance can actually vary across the different facilities. So with auto calibrations, they are they don't even need line of sight, and it can be powered wirelessly within a 25-meter radius. So with such a wirelessly powered IoT solutions, it enables the manufacturing facilities to digitalize their floor monitoring, sensing intelligence with negligible downtime, increasing in the efficiency, yield, and factory management. So this case study is just one example of this, how the startup community can actually support the sustainability journey in the manufacturing sector. As what the previous speaker in the previous session mentioned, the value chain of manufacturing actually range from raw material all the way to the end of life, or the creator to creator approach. So we work with our partners globally, such as NanRise, in fact, and also in close distance with the Singapore Manufacturing Federation to support our startup in the various stage of this value chain in Singapore and beyond. But nevertheless, not all startups' stories are the same, and not so rosy, in fact. Many of our startups face challenges in deploying their solution in the market. Generally, companies in Singapore tend to be a bit more risk averse in adopting new technological solutions. So startup, while they are generally more innovative, they need more than technology and innovations to convince the buyer. So we at Ecolab, we are committed to support solution provider in their commercialization journey through technology demonstrations, test bed, pilots, and many more. I'm happy to discuss more with the other panelists and how do we support the sustainability transformation journey for the manufacturing sector. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And over at ASEAN, I think we are also very interested to engage with you on to continue this conversation. But for this roundtable, let me bring everyone back up into the more the government initiatives. So may I invite Nicholas from the chairman of the European Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Vietnam, to share his views on this topic before we go on to the a company that is based in, that has a manufacturing plant in Vietnam for BASF. So Nicholas, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. I don't know if you can hear me. I guess, well, okay, so thank you very much. Good morning, everyone in Europe. I know it's not so early, but I think everyone in Europe who should or could be now on the line. Good afternoon, everyone from Singapore, Chris, Alexander, and Ryan, so good afternoon, all of you. Good afternoon, my friend at Binh Duong. So I would like to thank Praxis and Christophe Schiel, who actually organized this roundtable today. So thank you very much. Now, I am very happy to be here today. I'm not an expert of green technology. I'm not an expert of climate change, but I am actually the chairman of EUROCHAM, the European Chamber of Commerce. And I've been working for the last 10 years on this EVFTA, the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. And believe it or not, whatever you have said today and yesterday is part of the so-called Article 13 of the Free Trade Agreement, which is actually the Bible of anything you have said today. It's covered everything from
I think, Nicola, we lost you. You are muted.
Oh, sorry, it's a mistake. I don't know when I cut, but my message was simply to say that thanks to the free trade agreement, and I understand that Singapore has a similar agreement, and also we are with Chris thinking of having an EU-ASEAN free trade agreement. But anyhow, in Vietnam, we have this FTA, and Article 13 of this FTA is very complete. So we have now a tool which is important for EUROCHAM when we have to discuss with the Vietnamese authority. One thing I would like to tell you, when this FTA went to the parliament in Strasbourg in Europe, the Green Party, which is big component of the political parties in Europe, is extremely, I mean, they are watching carefully any writing, any article on anything connected to the Paris, to the climate, to the energy, to the environment. So now in Europe, it is a key issue. And that explains why sometimes the Parliament or the Commission are not willing to open discussion on FTA with any other countries. In Vietnam, Eurocham, we have 1,200 members. We have established some years ago a Green Growth Sector Committee in Vietnam, which will include something like 20, 25 or 30 companies. And the goal of the Green Growth Sector Committee is to help the Vietnamese government to tackle all the issues on the environment. In 2020, just to tell you what we've done in 2020, every year we publish what we call the White Book. We mentioned to the government of Vietnam some element on the circular economy. I was very happy to listen to the speech of Madame Johan Trake. And actually, we have delivered a statement in 2020 on the circular economy in Vietnam. So how to address that in Vietnam, which law, decree, regulation should have to be adopted. We have also discussed waste management. In Vietnam, we have a lot of issues on waste management, and we try to bring expertise, knowledge. And I see that in your panel, you have some private sectors company, and of course, they are welcome to come to Vietnam because this is what we try to do in Vietnam to improve, to have a better waste management. We also plastic pollution. One of the panelists will speak about plastic. Some years ago, so I think a year ago, we were organizing an event on plastic pollution in Vietnam and how to tackle that issue in Vietnam. Wastewater treatment solution, another issue in Vietnam. The World Bank, ADB has estimated that Vietnamese government is spending a lot of money on our waste in the water treatment in Vietnam. Water security is in Vietnam. So we have been working in Vietnam with the government to improve the regulation. Today, and it was interesting to see, to hear what Chris was saying about the small things. We have a lot of private company, many from Europe, based in Singapore, but basically with expertise from Europe, coming to Vietnam to invest on the solar energy and water energy and wind energy in Vietnam. It's a small, sometimes it's a small project, a solar panel on the housing, house, apartment, commercial centers. It's a small companies, but it's a very vivid and dynamic environment. We are simply pushing the government to have a better feed-in tariff. It's very small, it's not a big issue, but that will help this small, a small producer of energy to have this renewable energy to be bring back to the grid, of EVN, which is the Vietnamese main companies. We also help the government to adopt a faster timeline for the implementation of the competitive wholesale market so that our companies shall be able to participate in the market. In 2020, we organized, or 21, we organized an event on the rethinking plastic circular economy solution to marine litter. We organized a sustainability initiative, including eliminating single-use plastic bottle in Vietnam. So just to tell you that what we try to do at the Eurocham is to bring the private sectors in Vietnam and help the Vietnamese government to adopt, to take to some regulation which will improve the environment sectors in Vietnam. And that is in line with the free trade agreement. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. And so without further ado, we are running a bit late. Let me turn to Eric from BASF.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, and thanks again to the organizers and to Michelle, our dear moderator. Thanks to Nicolas as well, because he introduced already some part of the role that I do. So apart from being the manager of BASF Vietnam, I sit together with Tommaso also on the Green Growth Sector Committee as vice chairman for the circular economy. Now I want to talk a little bit more about BSF because I think we do share a lot of the BSF practices into Vietnam. Yeah, as you may know, BSF is a German chemical company, and we primarily supply key raw materials and technologies to various industries and manufacturers for footwear, textile, mattresses, automotive, and various plastic-based products, among others. Yeah. Now, I'd like to share a few technologies. It's not as high tech as IoT or other, let's say, new smart manufacturing, but it's really key technology transfers that we can really, or that we have already implemented from Germany to Vietnam. So for example, for footwear manufacturing, we do some projects and initiatives together with European companies like Adidas, Echo, and other brands, yeah, and their local tiers to design more sustainable footwear. Yeah, so using new raw materials, using recycled ocean plastic, using 3D printing technology to reduce the wastage, among others. Yeah, which eventually the overall aim is to achieve circular economy. Yeah. Now, for plastic manufacturers in Vietnam, where there are a lot, yeah, we supply the certified compostable raw materials to allow companies like, I think it was Anthony was there earlier, a good friend of mine from RKW, and also Anfat and other plastic producers, Lixin, a few others, to make compostable plastic bags and containers, both for Vietnam and also for export to the European and global markets. Yeah. On the other end, we also supply formulated additives so that you can make plastic products more durable against sunlight. So we supply, for example, anti-UV products, additives. We also supply antioxidants, yeah, to make the plastic resistant to oxygen and other environmental impacts, so they can be reused longer and recycled easier. Of course, here in Vietnam, we need to be a bit careful because we don't have the sufficient and appropriate technologies, Michelle, right? Like infrastructures, like what we have in EU. That's why what we've done together with the, as member, BSF as a member of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, is to start a project on recycling polyethylene plastic. Yeah? So we're establishing a plastic recycling facility in Long An province, primarily targeted on PE, yeah, and it's led by a company called Grameen Lab, together with WWF and other local associations in the Mekong Delta, because the infrastructure is lacking. Yeah, so you can have all the compostable bags, but if you end up, mixing them with the other non-compostable and other organic, it doesn't work. If you just put them in the landfill, it doesn't work. You need the proper infrastructure in the facility to do so. Yeah, of course, with all the other, recyclable plastic, you also need a facility to recycle them. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Lastly, BSF has also invested in several sustainable technologies. For example, we have a new infrared technology called Trinamics. It's a company in Germany, and you can use infrared to actually identify different types of plastic. Yeah, you can use your phone, you can use like a IR gun, so you can help proper sorting and identification, easier identification of plastic waste. Yeah, of course, BSF being a let's say industry company, we also supply automotive muffler catalysts for the two-wheeler. Yeah, so I think most of the two-wheeler bikes in Vietnam have the BSF catalyst in the muffler to have cleaner emissions. We supply also fuel and lubricant additives, again to reduce emissions, and of course, that's just a transition technology, the petrol, yeah, the petroleum based. What we're trying to work on now is really the catalyst technology. So we supply to Tesla, we supply to NIO, to all the e-car companies for the battery, yeah. And this same battery technology, we can also supply now as battery storage for solar and wind power. Yeah, so as replacement for diesel or for peak shaver, because usually, when it's at night, you need the battery, you need to store the solar, right? Or if there's no wind, then you need that battery storage to pick up the energy requirement whenever you have less wind, yeah, available. So these are just some of the projects that we're doing. I mean, there was some mention also on the drone technology for agro products. We are actually doing that in the Philippines, and that's being scattered in ASEAN, yeah, to really optimize the crop protection application, yeah, in different farming technologies. So that's also being done as we speak, yeah. And I think in the session in the Philippines, my colleague in the Philippines will talk about that in the next webinar, yeah. So just some of the examples, just to provide you with some insights that, you know, where sustainable technologies from a European company like BASF can transfer, you know, to emerging countries like Vietnam, Philippines, and the rest of ASEAN. Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the session. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. In fact, that was very interesting. So we are having our ASEAN Costi Chair to close this conference. So, but before we do that, can I just round off and see whether there are any questions from the ground? And while we wait for questions, may I just inform all participants that if there's anything that they're interested in to get in touch with any of our speakers, please feel free to do so either via the thread or through the secretariat, and they will get to any of the speakers for you. Okay, so Ms. Lin, I think we will pass it back to you because I believe the ASEAN Costi Chair is waiting.
So thank you very much. So we already checked, and it's very interesting with honor section we have the morning up to now. And we also check honor the chat box. We have so many questions coming up. But actually, there's some of other questions we already answered. And we also keep some questions in order to put at the report. And later on, we will give the feedback to them by the report of honor section we have yesterday and today. And we would like to continue with the closing remark. And also it's running out of time for many speakers. And we also would like to save the time for all of us. And we also keep energies in order to move on forward, in order to go green. And we also keep all of the manufacturing line greener in the futures. So in order to come to the closing remarks, I would like to, firstly, I would like to invite Dr. Nguyễn Việt Lâm. He will give for the closing remark from Bình Dương province. And he will share with us about what our perspectives in Vietnam as well in Bình Dương province we are looking forward. So, Dr. Lâm, please.
Kính thưa Đại sứ Alberti, Đại sứ của châu Âu tại Việt Nam. Kính thưa Giáo sư Songsi Vilai, Chủ tịch Ủy ban Khoa học Công nghệ Đổi mới của ASEAN. Tiến sĩ Drucker, Phó Tổng cục trưởng Ủy ban châu Âu phụ trách môi trường. Và ông Pham Hammer, trưởng ban hợp tác phái đoàn châu Âu tại Indonesia, Brunei, Darussalam và ASEAN. Kính thưa quý vị lãnh đạo châu Âu, Việt Nam, kính thưa toàn thể quý vị. Chúng ta thấy là cái cuộc cách mạng công nghiệp lần thứ tư, và đặc biệt là trong bối cảnh Covid và sắp tới sẽ là hậu Covid, thì nhu cầu về công nghệ xanh cũng đang lớn lên, ngày càng lớn, càng quan trọng hơn bao giờ hết, từ châu Âu đến châu Á và trải rộng trên khắp toàn cầu. Và trong cái bối cảnh đó thì cái hội nghị diễn ra 2 ngày của chúng ta ngày hôm nay được tổ chức bởi Ủy ban châu Âu, ASEAN, Bộ Khoa học Công nghệ Việt Nam và tỉnh Bình Dương dưới sự hỗ trợ của Tổng công ty Becamax và Trung tâm Thương mại Thế giới thành phố mới Bình Dương đã diễn ra rất là thành công, tốt đẹp. Cũng xin báo cáo thêm với quý vị là để hạn chế Covid thì hội nghị chỉ mời một số lượng người rất giới hạn, tối đa 50 trong hội trường. Nhưng mà chúng ta cũng thu hút khoảng 150 khách nghe online. Và với các cái thảo luận rất hay, rất sát với cái thực tế, nhiều doanh nghiệp cũng đã phản ánh lại là đó là những cái điều mà họ đang cần được biết, và đến từ các diễn giả rất xuất sắc, từ các lãnh đạo cả trong chính trị lẫn trong viện trường cũng như là doanh nghiệp. Thì hội nghị cũng là cái cơ hội để các lãnh đạo, các đối tác tiềm năng từ châu Âu đến Việt Nam có thể gặp gỡ, trao đổi, hợp tác và cùng chung tay cho sự phát triển chung của châu Âu, của ASEAN, của Việt Nam và toàn cầu, và hướng tới cái chủ trương là Go Green. Hội thảo thì đang khép lại, nhưng mà tôi mong rằng là đây cũng là lúc để hợp tác châu Âu Việt Nam về công nghệ xanh về 4.0 đang mở ra. Được cái sự cho phép của lãnh đạo tỉnh thì chúng tôi cũng xin gửi lời mời trân trọng nhất đến tất cả quý vị đối tác ở đây. Xin kính mời quý vị sớm đến thăm Bình Dương tươi đẹp của chúng tôi. Và về cái đầu mối liên lạc tôi cũng xin cử luôn Trung tâm Thương mại Thế giới thành phố mới Bình Dương ở đây, chị Linh. Và thay mặt lãnh đạo tỉnh Bình Dương thì tôi xin trân trọng cảm ơn ban tổ chức một lần nữa và các cơ quan, doanh nghiệp, viện trường, tổ chức trong và ngoài nước đã tham gia hội thảo này cả online lẫn offline. Và xin chúc quý vị, toàn thể quý vị, quý doanh nghiệp thật nhiều sức khỏe, hạnh phúc và thành đạt. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Xin cảm ơn tiến sĩ Nguyễn Việt Long. Và tiếp theo chương trình thì chúng tôi cũng rất là trân trọng được chào đón một vị khách quý của chúng ta, một vị khách chúng tôi rất là bất ngờ rằng giáo sư Sirirup Song CV Lãi đã có thời gian đến để có thể trao đổi và chia sẻ với chúng tôi. Thì giáo sư đã có thể chia sẻ với chúng tôi rất là nhiều thông tin và chúng tôi rất là mong chờ để có thể nghe được những điều chia sẻ của giáo sư. Và chúng tôi cũng mong muốn rằng là với vai trò là Chánh văn phòng Bộ Giáo dục, Khoa học, Nghiên cứu và Đổi mới sáng tạo Thái Lan, cũng như cùng đồng thời nắm vị trí Chủ tịch Ủy ban Khoa học Công nghệ Đổi mới ASEAN, thì những cái điều mà chúng tôi đã thảo luận trong suốt 2 ngày vừa qua thì chắc chắn là chúng tôi hy vọng rằng là Ngài cũng sẽ quan tâm, và chúng tôi cũng hy vọng sẽ được hợp tác nhiều hơn nữa, đặc biệt là với Thái Lan cũng như là các nước ASEAN khác trong cái lĩnh vực phát triển đổi mới sáng tạo và công nghiệp xanh này.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Pierik Philong-Achida, European Commission, DG Research and Innovation, Mr. Mai Hung Dung, Standing Deputy Chairman of the Binh Xuân Provincial People's Committee, Your Excellency Giorgio Aliberti, Ambassador of the European Union to Vietnam, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the EU-ASEAN Industrial Conference on Green Manufacturing Technology has come to an end. In my capacity as chairman of ASEAN Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation, COSTI, I'm very pleased to hear that you have productive discussion regarding sustainable manufacturing technologies which ASEAN needs and the best practice leading to future cooperation between our two regions. I would specifically like to thank all speakers and participants for your contribution, which significantly make this conference a success. However, we still have great challenges and opportunities ahead. With a strong commitment from the EU and the ASEAN on green manufacturing technologies and collaboration, I'm certain that we can achieve our goals and will further collaborate to propel what we have discussed and agree at this conference into action and create green economy in both regions. I wish all of you stay safe and healthy until we meet next time. Thank you very much.
Xin cảm ơn Ngài, và chúng tôi cũng hy vọng là chúng tôi sẽ có thể chào đón Ngài đến với tỉnh Bình Dương của chúng tôi cũng như là các nước ASEAN khác trong cái việc chúng ta cùng hợp tác vào chương trình này. Và kết thúc chương trình thì chúng tôi xin trân trọng kính mời ông Han Hanuman sẽ có đôi lời phát biểu để chúng ta sẽ khép lại cái nội dung của chương trình trong suốt 2 ngày của chúng ta ngày hôm nay. Xin kính mời ông.
Chào quý vị và quý khách xin chào. So first of all, I'm very honored today to close this event on behalf of the EU Ambassador to ASEAN, Mr. Igor Driesmans. I would like, first of all, thank the People's Committee of Binh Xuân for co-organizing this event with the European Union, which is part of our EU-ASEAN Dialogue Facility, eReady, which has this comprehensive program to support green tech, EU-ASEAN exchange on green tech, which once again is part of our overall cooperation on the Green Deal, climate change. You all have heard a lot about the European Union Green Deal and how we want to work together with our partners in ASEAN on this. And green manufacturing and green tech is really key. And I'm very impressed to have heard today in the speeches from the People's Committee, from our ambassador to Vietnam, from Mrs. Joanna Drake, also the Deputy Director General from the DG for Environment, but also in the roundtables, which are so excellently moderated by Michelle Chu. And also, I would like to thank very much the chairman of the ASEAN Committee on Science for these excellent contributions. This event is important. It shows what European companies are doing in Vietnam, in the ASEAN region, and it shows the potential what we can share more in the future, and also the excellent initiatives which exist in the region to work together with. So I'm very confident that this is just a stepping stone for more cooperation on intelligent, on green manufacturing, which is really part of EU priorities for the next years. It is on the one hand a very important Green Deal. It's also important digitalization, and both combined, the Green Deal and digitalization is also very important, with a third priority, making the economy work for the people. So greening the economy, smart manufacturing is all part of our growth strategy, is to achieve our ambitious goals on becoming climate neutral by 2050. And I understand that also some ASEAN countries, they are now actively thinking or close to announce their targets to become as well climate neutral in the future. So this event is showing that we can do so much together. Let's continue working on this with everybody involved. From the European Union, it is many DGs. It's our research DG, it's the environment DG. My own DG, I come from the Director General for International Partnerships. We want to strengthen our partnership with ASEAN and with the individual member states on this. We would like to work more together on technology transfer. So I thank everybody who was involved in this conference for sharing, for participating. So from, and especially DG RTD and Environment, and the working groups from ASEAN, the different ministries of Vietnam overall, and my colleagues also in Vietnam. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to continued cooperation on this, and I hope you all enjoyed this conference and got some new ideas. Thank you very much. Come on, and hẹn gặp lại.
Thank you very much, Han. Và chúng tôi cũng mong hẹn gặp lại. Thưa quý vị, như vậy là trong thời gian suốt 2 ngày làm việc tích cực vừa qua thì chúng ta cũng đã gặt hái rất là nhiều thành công, và những cái nội dung mà chúng ta thu được thì chúng tôi cũng hy vọng rằng là chúng ta sẽ nhanh chóng có những cái hợp tác rất là chặt chẽ giữa châu Âu, các nước ASEAN cũng như từ phía đầu cầu Bình Dương của chúng tôi. Thì chúng tôi cũng mong muốn sẽ đón tiếp quý vị trong thời gian sớm nhất, ngay sau khi tình hình Covid bình thường trở lại, bỏ qua đi và chúng ta bình thường trở lại, thì chúng ta sẽ có thể đón tiếp quý vị ở những hội nghị, hội thảo lớn mà chúng tôi sẽ tổ chức trong thời gian tới tại WTC Bình Dương New City. Và chúng tôi cũng hy vọng rằng những cái nội dung mà chúng ta đã thảo luận sẽ được đưa vào trong những cái kế hoạch rất là cụ thể, và chúng ta sẽ sớm triển khai cùng với nhau. Xin kính chào và cảm ơn. Xin cảm ơn quý vị.
Thank you and goodbye.